Hello and welcome to Talking Stars. I am your host Darren from Movie Reviews 101, and joining me, as always, is my co-host Damien Riley from Riley on Film.
Yes, hello there, Darren. How are you today?
I am good, thank you.
That's good
Yourself?
to hear. I'm doing great. Doing really good.
Good, good.
Seeing lots of movies lately.
So today we are going to look at two separate films. We are going to look at one that's a season and one that's a phone. And we're going to start with the season, and I'll hand over to Damien.
Okay, that's good. Well, we're going to talk about Spring today, which is a film, a low budget film, somewhat. I think it was made for over 100,000, but certainly not anywhere near 500,000 or 1 million. And it's a film that presents itself sort of as a sleepy romance in Italy, and ends up being a little bit of a creepy horror film. So you rarely will see romance and horror to describe the genre of a movie, but that's what this one is: drama, romance, and horror. And I thought I'd begin just with a few critic reviews of this film and then go into my short review of it. One critic says, "It's a wholly captivating date movie for eternal romantics who also enjoy slime and tentacle transformations." And that was Kim Newman of Empire Magazine. Another one says, "Unlike, say, one of Eli Roth's Vacations Gone Wrong, Spring doesn't treat the sightseeing bits as prelude to total carnage. Horror invades the proceedings, but it doesn't hijack them." And that was A. Dowd said that. Finally, the third one I picked was, "The best thing about Spring is that it doesn't lead to an obvious devoured by my girlfriend ending." And that was Neil Genslinger of the New York Times. This film actually came before me when I was looking for some sci-fi movies to watch. And I did a search, an internet movie database of sci-fi films, and came across this movie, Spring. And like I said before, I said it was romance and sci-fi and horror. So I definitely had to check that out. There are some truly breathtaking cinematography of Italy when you first start the film. You have the characters meeting, the characters falling in love, and for all intents and purposes, it's just, like I say, a very sleepy kind of romantic, not a comedy, but certainly romantic drama in Italy, and it's very pleasant to watch. But through a course of events, the American who is vacationing in Italy um, is played by Lou Taylor Pucci, and his name is Evan. Meets up with the character, her name is Louise, his soon-to-be girlfriend, in Italy. Her name is Nadia Hilker, and she's doing some sort of research there or something as a research student. So they begin to date and do things, and it's very romantic, very sweet, and you begin to wonder, what are they talking about when they say this is horror? So, like I said, I really enjoyed the cinematography of Italy. He has sort of a mentor slash boss that he works for in Italy, who is very well cast. His Francesco Carnaluti, and his character's name is Angelo, and he is sort of like he's sort of like his somewhat of a father figure, and so he's an interesting character as well. But mostly the movie surrounds and finds its strength in these two. Um, and she's very mysterious. She's very mysterious from the beginning all the way. Well, in the end, she's not mysterious because all is revealed. But he jokes with her about possibly being a prostitute because no one can tell what she does for a living or where her money comes from. She's, a young, able female in Italy. And so one of his friends actually mentions to her, does she take money for sex? And so no one really knows if she's a woman of the night or what does she do. But we find out that there's something far more sinister about who she is, and otherworldly. So um, that would be my intro to it, and I'll just throw it over to my cohort. And Darren, what are your thoughts on this film, at least the beginning?
Well, from what I remember, because it's been a little bit longer since I last saw it,
Yeah.
Evan goes to Italy because his mum dies,
I think so. I don't remember that detail either, though.
and he gets in trouble back home. He definitely gets in trouble back home, and it's like, just go, do something, get out of the country.
hmm
And I think he was travelling around Europe and ended up in Italy,
hmm Yeah.
where he's met a few other people. They all want to go to different places and just party away.
hmm
And then he meets her and thinks, who's she? What's she doing? She's super hot. I want her. Blah, blah. You know, like they do with the early love stories.
Yeah.
And she sort of tries to lead him on, but because she knows her secret, she doesn't want anything too serious.
hmm
She does make that very clear early on. She doesn't want it to be a serious thing, but he refuses to leave.
Right.
And I guess we should head into the spoiler talk.
Hey, I'm of the opinion that this whole show we do is probably going to be full of spoilers. But yes, what we say on this show is meant to be discussion of the movie, unless we indicate that it's a preview, in which case we won't present spoilers in those shows. But this is not a preview show. This is a spoiler show.
So within the spoilers, we get to see not necessarily what she is early on, but elements to her character that aren't like normal women.
Right.
Well, not all of them anyway. Where she has a bloodlust of sorts.
hmm
But why does she have a bloodlust? That was the question that we find halfway through the movie.
hmm
And that's where it starts to get interesting, because Evan is like us, he just wants to know what's going on. Why is this happening? Why is she like this? Especially when he catches her mid-kill, I believe he does.
Yeah.
I think it was a cat or something, wasn't it? Not necessarily a person.
hmm
And we're left just to imagine what would you think if that happened to you?
Yeah.
In a country with no one to talk to, and with nowhere to go if something went wrong. It's sort of,
And it's similar to when you are falling in love. You know, humans tend, and I've seen friends of mine who are gay, I've seen friends of mine who are straight, I've seen my son and his dating experiences, I've seen my own life. You tend to want to believe the best about the are basically having these feelings for, and so you will dismiss a lot of things that might be unattractive traits. And I think what you're describing is definitely an unattractive moment, but for some reason it's like you said, he doesn't go away. He just stays on her and on her. So it's kind of a relationship thing too. I thought, they're saying she's already told him she doesn't want him to hang around. Now she's doing this like really weird thing, almost like to where she's a werewolf or a vampire or something, because you don't really know what she is at that point. But he will not go. So sorry about that. Just throw that in there.
no, sorry. And then the main part of this is leading to learning. She finally accepts that he's going to stick around, and she does spill the truth about who she is, what she is.
Yeah.
And that's where the revelation from this movie comes, where, isn't it, if I'm not mistaken, that she dies or has to recreate who she is over and over.
I think well, all I got was that she's turning into something. She's morphing into something resembling a squid, something of that nature. And she has to give herself these injections to keep that from coming on. So if she stays away from her injection too long, then that transformation can go full force.
And we see that by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Which leaves us
What a
with...
scene that is.
We don't really know what happens at the end, do we? Because the prophecy that she's been following comes true. Where she does transform, and they decide to just... When she transforms, from what I understand, the world or the volcano is going to destroy where she is.
Yes.
So they can have those last few moments in love before they die, instead of her having the eternal life she's had to live forever so far. Yes, and that's kind of where the end of the film happens. Like, you see it kind of erupt, and you're sat then it rolls the credits.
Yeah.
And
so he's gonna go out in love, I suppose.
And so is she, though, because if she goes full transformation, that's the end of her life as well.
Yeah.
So she accepts that this is the time to go, instead of having to wait around much longer.
Yeah, and she and she has told him so many times, like we've said, she doesn't want anything serious. So it's really not something she looked for. She didn't, put out an ad for someone to come be her boyfriend and die with her. It just sort of happened. So
yes,
I thought it was a great movie. For what it was a great movie.
Yeah, it's a surprise movie. I think a lot of people didn't really see it coming.
I do think that you could have,
And it comes off original as well.
Oh man, it shocked me. Yeah, it shocked me. I was really shocked. I was thinking all these things, like, what is she? What could she be? Is she a charlatan? Is she going to rip him off? What is it? Is she hiding her poor family? All those things. And so when I saw that scene where she turned into the squid, I was shocked. That was the horror.
But that's what this film does that a lot of other films cannot do. They give you that surprise moment.
Yeah.
So
it was a surprise.
On the 5 out of 5s, how many 5s would you give it?
Hang on 1 second. I'd give it a 5. Did you hear my drum beat?
Yes.
Everyone out there? Okay, yeah. I give it a 5 because for what it tries to be, I try to give stars based on what they try to be. And did they hit it? And they tried to be a love story. They tried to be tender with it. And they tried to make it shocking at the end as a horror. So for a romance horror, I give it a 5.
Okay. Well, I'm only going to give it a 4. Mainly because there's a couple of lully moments in the middle. Even though you do have the mystery, it does take... The dates sometimes feel very long to watch.
Yes.
So, that's the negative side.
You have to really relax and... Yeah, you have to just sort of not expect anything. Otherwise, it would be long to watch because they're kind of in cafes and, parties and things like that for a long time. But I found that enjoyable because I really like the backgrounds of Italy.
Yeah, but visually it's great. It's just sometimes I found certain bits could have been trimmed down a bit because it is nearly 2 hours long, this film.
Yeah, I agree.
So, with part 1, the season over, we now have to go and work out about phones. And more importantly, cell phones. When we take on the latest of the Stephen King movies. Cell, which, sadly... No, we're not going to go there yet. We're going to go look at the director who gave us Paranormal Activity 2. And we could have had Eli Roth. That's all I have to say. We could have had Eli Roth. But I'm going to start with why the title is terrible. and this is it's harsh, but I believe it's only North America that call them cell phones. We've never called them cell phones. They're called mobile phones. Because they're mobile telephones. So the title is misleading if you don't know what a cell phone is. That's the first thing that's really bad about this film.
Okay.
But the film follows the idea that cell phones give you a signal that turns you into some crazed zombie, the rage zombies rather than the slow-moving ones, hell-bent on just killing anyone around you to start with. And we get a wonderful opening scene, which is completely ripped off from Resident Evil Degeneration, the animated version of Resident Evil, with the airport scene. Well, it looks great, and the idea is that everyone is attached to their mobile phones for life, seemingly. It works for trying to tell us that if someone was going to attack us, use the phones, because all people do is sit there on their phones nowadays. Which is pretty much what Warm Bodies did in that opening scene as well. Yeah. If you ever saw Warm Bodies, that opening scene.
Yes.
With the zombie talking about what's happening. I remember that scene. So that is pretty much... on Warm Bodies could almost be a sequel to this. That's how ridiculous it could be. But we have John Cusack returning for the third Stephen King adaptation after 1408 and Stand By Me. Samuel Jackson returning after 1408, and Isabel Fuhrman also returning to a Stephen King adaptation after doing Kingdom Hospital. So we have, as all Stephen King fans know, a creative character in the lead role. He is an artist. He's either an artist or an author or a writer or a picture person. He's never an average Joe. He is always a creative person who has ruined his personal relationships, which is who Clay Riddle is, who wants to get back to his son, and I don't think he wants to see his ex-wife, but he wants to save his son.
Yes.
To do this, he has to team up with the crazy Tom McCourt, played by Mr. Jackson, and his estranged neighbour, Alice, to travel across America. And I believe it starts in Maine, because all of Stephen King's movies tend to happen in Maine, and he needs to get to New England.
I didn't know that.
Stephen King's a Maine resident, so he tries to keep everything having a scene or set in Maine. But I don't know how far away New England is from Maine.
Oh, very close. I mean, Maine's way up there at the top, and then New England's going toward New York.
So he might have been
sandwiched.
It might have been more him trying. He might have been on the other side, and New England's classed as like the main side then.
Yeah.
But to get away from this, they have to go through all the ruined streets of America and meeting a strange group of people. We have the head teacher, played by Stacey Keach, who's at a private school, with a loner or a poor kid or a rich kid whose parents don't care about him, I think. And that does have the most shocking scene, I think, of the movie, with the field of screams when they're all the zombies are asleep. So that night they go to sleep. But it's a different twist on zombies, let's give it that. But they go to sleep and they just mow them all over and then burn them. Why not?
Yeah.
So far I'm thinking this is going to be one of those that you can just switch on and just get through. Simple enough, correct? I'm guessing you could get through that bit without it being weird or boring. No? Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pretty. Yeah, you got something weird coming up.
Well, it then delves into the stupid mistakes of a horror movie, where you enter into a film that seems to never have seen a horror movie before, which is something horror always seems to have going on in its disadvantage. However many
Yeah.
people in these movies, they've never seen horror movies before. Like your
Yeah.
examples lead to looking through an open door when you know nobody else is
Yeah.
outside. Knowing that
Yeah.
all these zombies have the same eyesight, so they can see everything and hear everything.
Yeah.
And taking a bag off one's head because it was talking to you like your son, when it clearly isn't your son. And then
Yeah.
that's just the start of the stupid mistakes that happen in this movie that take everything that it's tried to build up and just throws it all out the window. Because why would
I
you do?
thought that was a little infantile when it said, "Hi, Daddy," or something like that. He just decides to completely smash the thing's head in, you know.
But
That
that
was
was the only
ridiculous.
good thing he did because he had to do that because otherwise they would see where they are.
Oh, right, yeah.
But the idea to take the
Oh, see,
bag,
I just thought that was him. Yeah, there you go.
they had to do that because that's why it had the bag over its head. Because they figured out that if one can see you, they can all see you.
Yeah.
Which means they're all going to come and get them now, so they have to leave their safe place.
Yes.
Because this thing had a reaction whenever they were getting closer as well.
I see.
But as all horror movies seem to want to do now, they try to give us an ambiguous ending with no real clue where the film wanted to go in the first place, and ruin a classic song, You'll Never Walk Alone, and ruin John Cusack's credibility forever with The Circle.
Yeah.
Now, that is, again, it's like, what?
Oh, man.
The interesting thing about this film is the fact that apparently Stephen King and John Cusack got taken out of any post-production side of this story. So most of the film apparently is the production company's decisions and not the original vision of King himself and what
Oh.
Cusack thought his character was going to be. So they both refused to talk about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, it's going to go down as something you can just watch as like a bit of a guilty pleasure, like probably have a few drinks and enjoy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's
otherwise,
some cool visuals, yeah.
well, it was filmed
But
over 2 years ago. Well, in
uh-huh.
2013 they filmed this movie.
Wow.
So,
Well, I thought it was interesting, the idea of having cell phones, like these people become cell phones. That was interesting to me. And they could play music. I think when they were sleeping, wasn't it playing like a sleeping song?
yeah, it could almost be like a ringtone as well, sort
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah, they were just like playing this sort of, yeah.
that side's all good. Like it's original for a zombie movie. I'll accept that perfectly.
Yeah, yeah.
Because how often is
I
it that
didn't
zombies
like
go on?
I didn't like the way it seemed to me. It seemed to me like almost like Stacy Keach's character. He was the headmaster at a school or the head of some school, and it sort of, I thought it was kind of like simplistic, almost like they were pushing the morals of saying cell phones are bad and everybody's on their cell phone and this is so bad. And I could just see Stephen King like maybe coming up with that because he's wealthy, he's cloistered. His job is to be by himself all the time writing, so he's not really in touch with the social world where everybody has cell phones, and they're not. I mean, as a teacher, I know I have to accept them. The kids have to bring them to school. If their parents have an emergency, they call their kids. So, and especially in high school too. But I don't teach high school. But you know, the kids all have cell phones now. It's just part of life, and it's almost like he got on the he wrote a story about a social issue that's decades back, maybe even 15, 20 years back. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this was written about 10 years ago as well. So they were only basic
Yeah.
cell phones when this would have been written. It wouldn't have been as bad as it is now, social wise.
Yeah.
So I have got the book from a few. I think I even tried reading it about 10
Yeah.
years ago.
Well, I mean, if you go to airports, like we recently traveled on an airplane, and every single seat has a little iPhone plug where you can charge your iPhone in the airport. So, I mean, it's no longer even, you can't really make a statement about being wrong anymore. It's just everybody has one. Period. You know.
Yeah.
I just felt like it's a little preachy, maybe, but the Stacy Keach character.
If he had, I can't remember if he had a religious side to his character, but that could also be what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm not fully sure. Like, if that's just, they just didn't give the character the right development. Because obviously,
No.
because the students at that boarding school were there because their parents are probably away on their phones all the time. It could be his way of reflecting.
Yeah.
If they want to actually look after their kids instead of just be trying to make as much money doing silly business on their phones, it might be just his frustration and his generation gap, because he is an older character.
Yeah.
So what he wouldn't have seen that growing up.
Yeah.
So it might just be his way of trying to create a character, because you have to have an opposite, like in all
like
Kings.
if you look at it, yeah.
But if you look at like The Mist, for example, you have that religion versus.
Yeah.
So that's what he's probably tried to create, and he probably did it better in the books than in the film. Because you need that human conflict somewhere in this film, because there literally isn't any human conflict in this film. It's just human.
No, really, there isn't.
And that's what always happens in a good zombie movie, that there'll be humans against humans with zombies in the background. And the side effects to that you will see unfold. But otherwise, this one, it just seems like it was a glorified survivalist movie. Like,
yeah, I felt like he was making a comment though about cell phones taken to their extreme, like in Firestarter. If you remember Firestarter, her parents, the character is played by Drew Barrymore, and her parents were involved in government studies in the late 60s and 70s, and they were given money to take these drugs that were like psychotropic, or not even psychotropic, the kind of, paranormal type abilities would occur if they took these drugs. And so it's almost like he was saying, look what happens when people engage in this. Look what their child can do. Now their child just gets upset and catches something on fire because we're messing with, our DNA and our humanity. So I thought there was a similar way he was making a statement like, this is what happens if we take cell phones to their ultimate extreme. But he didn't know how good they were going to be. And I'll bet you, as he was on set, he probably had his cell phone right on his hip the whole time.
There'll still be a constant question about whether cell phones or mobile phones are good or bad for certain elements of life, because they have taken the social aspect out of life.
Yeah.
But then that's a discussion for another day, I believe. But maybe
But you agree, you have one, right? I mean, you have a cell phone. So, okay, so you agree some of these older people and stuff walking the landscape that are still saying, oh, I'll never have a cell phone, those things are evil, that's a little extreme. I sort of got that vibe a little bit from just the title, and I thought, oh, come on.
I only got my first smartphone this year. I was happy with one that just texted and phoned. That's what I've always had a phone should be for. That's what I feel. It should only really be for that.
Yeah, well.
But because I've had other options.
It's another way to waste time, that's for sure.
Again, that's something that we could say waste time, but you go back 10, 15 years, that would be called having a conversation with someone. And that's why this film works for what Stephen King's horror is trying to create. He wants to have his social commentary on the fact that the social aspect of life is going, and if something did happen, you would have to try and build bridges, which is why I think there should have been a bit more conflict between the characters. Because if there was conflict between the characters, it would symbolise why he's done this movie, because Clay and Tom had never met.
That's interesting.
And if they had made them like a bit of tension between them, make it feel like an awkward friendship, because it never felt awkward. it would symbolise why he's done the social, taken away the social aspect of life. But if this was just like a terrorist attack, for example, they would instantly bond on that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what he would have liked from this book. But this has just gone. Like, they forgot to do the conflict in this movie. The only other thing good about this movie...
it's sort of like George Orwell's... Yeah, it's sort of like George Orwell's 1984. For me, I see what you're saying, and I agree. Yeah, I would much rather have normal, contact with people and go have a coffee rather than text. I think it'd be better, but in our society, people are opting more for the texting. So, I mean, even you and I, it's like I'm not going to get on an airplane once a week and go over there and record with you at your place. We've got Skype for that.
It's more when you have people who live in the same town as you, and that's what a lot of the people on phones do now.
Yes.
Like, even if you go further and deeper into it, you can add in video games. When I was younger, I wanted to play a video game. I'd have to go to my friend's house with a controller. Now I just have to plug the internet in and play online. So that's the deeper message I found from the film, but it got lost in the film.
I found it too. I think that's great.
The only thing
and I agree with you 100%. I'm on your side now. I changed my mind, but the thing that I was mainly trying to bring out was, how it's sort of an outmoded argument almost. Now I can see you're just recently getting into your smartphone, and it's great. I hope you get more into it. It's amazing. I do so much on my phone. But in 1984, the George Orwell story that was made into a movie, they have all the TVs everywhere, and he was saying the telescreens are going to be the death of us because everybody's going to look at what we're doing. So if you made a movie now saying the telescreen, nobody would care because we're just so used to TVs. So I sort of got a similar vibe from the movie. I thought, well, people aren't really going to buy into this because nobody can see cell phones as the enemy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's because they didn't. I think they could. I think he could have done it if you would, as I said, put some tension between the characters, but there wasn't any tension. They all seemed to get on quite well, and if you were to create a horror movie that cell phones are the bad thing, you have to almost do what Wall-E did, where it was quite awkward when they first had that conversation that you humans, because they're so used to just sitting and watching that screen. But when they have to talk to each other, they struggle to start with.
Yeah.
The only other good thing...
That's a good...
The good thing I did like was they weren't afraid to kill off people in this. Because Alice's death was shocking, because you thought, they're not going to kill like a teenage girl off, surely.
Yes.
And the way they did it was so brutal.
No.
And showed the world that they're suddenly in. But again, lacks the impact because of the lack. They were all getting on quite well in that bar. And suddenly they go crazy. And it's just one of those that you'll probably watch and just blank out but enjoy. So I'll go for the out of 5s. What would you give? Cell.
Well, I just thought the whole premise was basically preachy and needed, they needed to make it more, get more buy-in to be against cell phones. So they kind of didn't do what they were trying to do with me, so I'm going to have to take a couple stars off. I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay. Even though you seem to hate it more than I did, I'm actually going to give it a lower score. I'm still going to stick with 2.5.
Oh, I'm surprised.
It's more because...
But see, you know how to talk about a movie that you don't like and still recognize it's a good trait, so that's a good quality. I like that.
Well, I just look at certain things where... I forgot what 3 films I mixed it with, but I know one was definitely Pulse. The Asian version rather than the American version.
You told me to watch that, I think, the first time we did a podcast. I still need to watch that.
Well, that one's more very simply put that it's when computers first start getting used by everyone and ghosts start trying to come through the computers to take or suck the life out of people so they either kill themselves or just turn into dust. It's a very creepy horror movie.
Wow, let's check it
This
out.
one feels like this is Stephen King trying to do his spin on it with
Mm,
mobile phones or cell
mm,
phones,
mm,
which is why I saw it as, okay, it could work, but in the end it's just another botched horror movie that's
mm,
got all the potential and fails miserably with what it's
mm,
trying to do. So
mm.
I'll just see if I can remember what the other two films I mixed it with. What was it I said? It was a mix of. I think you can see all the Stephen King stamp all over it though.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Um,
How so?
well, he always has everything coming off quite quirky in a way that isn't quirky, but
Mm,
unique.
yeah.
So you can watch. Obviously last year I did the Stephen King blogathon with
Oh
Rob.
my god, I think I was in on that with you guys. Isn't that funny how years passed by?
Yeah.
That was one of the
So
first things I did with you guys.
so I had to watch 31 Stephen King projects. So I literally learnt his stamp on, especially his horror movies. And the other two I mixed it with almost was Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Mm,
Pulse, and 28 Days Later.
mm,
They're the three I mixed it with, and it just didn't quite work them all. So that's why it's only getting 2.5 stars.
mm. You know, we could probably do 3 or 4 podcast episodes on Stephen King if we ever wanted to.
2 or 3, it'll probably be 10 to 15,
Yeah,
20.
all right. That's right.
I,
I was just thinking about Silver Bullet because I did Silver Bullet for that blogathon that you're talking about, and oh man, that's just a whole different conversation.
well,
But yeah, he does get quirky, that's for sure.
well, before this film came out, when we were researching, if you include any writing credit Stephen King had, there was something like 80 films or TV miniseries to his name.
Oh my.
So you can
And
work,
his son now, Joe Hill, is real good. Did you see Horns?
yes, but we'll save horns for another day.
Of course,
Yes,
of course.
because that's got some good talking points in it.
Yes, it does. That's our. That's sort of like our second Tusk.
Stuff, we'll call it the Harry Potter task.
Yeah, there
Stuff,
you go.
and Juno
Harry
Temple.
Potter Tusk. That's funny. You just made a visual for me.
Well, that's what it is. It is
Yeah,
Harry Potter. Before, anyway,
yeah. It's Daniel Radcliffe. Yes.
and Juno Temple.
Mm-hmm.
But we won't go into that. We'll save horns for another show.
Good. Good.
So I think we should complete our seasonal phone conversation.
Yes. Let's
And
do that.
if you liked either of these films, I think you should leave a comment. Tell us
Hmm.
what rating out of 5 you give these movies,
There you go.
and tell us which one of us is right or wrong about Spring and Cell.
That's right. And if
And
you'd like to be a guest, we'd love to have more the merrier Skyping in with us. Doesn't matter where you live. That's what we've learned. If you live on the planet, we can Skype you in. So let us know.
so no astronauts.
I haven't tried that yet.
So I would like to say thank you to Damien for joining me. And
Thank you, Darren, as always.
you can find Damien at lifeversusfilm.com.
Uh-huh.
Not .net. No,
Yeah.
.com, that one.
It's RileyOnFilm.com. Sorry about all the confusion.
And you can find me at moviesreview101.com.
Yes.
And just search for us both on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And until next time, just don't talk on your phone.
Sayonara. Thanks for listening.